What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. And today I'm going back to a subject that I covered a long time ago. Actually, it's very interesting how this channel is coming full circle to some extent. If you guys have been watching my videos from early on, I think most of you haven't because those videos didn't get a lot of views. But this channel began as purely an exploration of NDEs. As when I first came into this channel in this field, I was thinking that NDEs were the end all be all, or at least I thought. Obviously, never cemented that thought, as I'm not trying to cement any thought, but I felt quite strongly that NDEs were amazing indications of what to expect in the afterlife, and also how to understand the present life and what the purpose is of it. And it generally formulated a thesis that hinged on many of the NDEs, which is simply that the main purpose of life is to love, is to raise our vibration, to treat people well, and just to do our best. And we all have individual objectives and goals and missions that all play together. And most of us are pretty much, actually, maybe the vast majority of us are pretty much all doing what we're supposed to be doing, and we got nothing to worry about. I'm not so sure about all this anymore. And it all began with the David Icke video. And so we've gone through this path ever since, where I've been looking into Gnosticism. I've discovered Jason Georgiani and his many theories. Max Spears is somebody that was mentioned to me that I looked into. Obviously, I've listened to a lot more of David Icke stuff since that original David Icke video. And now I am not so sure about the NDEs. In fact, I'm on the side now where I'm leaning towards thinking that the NDEs are indeed potentially manipulations, as David Icke posits, as Jason Georgiani posits, as many others believe. And so the reason why I'm revisiting this video testimony and this NDE that I reviewed months ago, but under a different perspective, is because when I've thought back on this one in particular, it really tripped me out. Now that I have this perspective shift, and I wanted to share this with you guys, and I'm very curious to hear what other people have to say about this NDE from Natalie Sudman. So Natalie Sudman, just to give a quick overview, she earned her MFA from the University of Oregon in 1989. And in order to support her art habit, she's worked as an archaeologist for 16 years and as a project manager in Iraq for a year and a half. She's from Montana. I spent a lot of time in Montana, raised in Minnesota, and her home is Black Hills of South Dakota, southwestern Montana. So just a little biography. But right now, we're going to get into this NDE. And the NDE happened because the near-death experience happened because she had a severe accident and she nearly passed away. But she remembers this NDE, a very interesting account of what she experienced, the conversation she had, the counsel that she met with. And initially, I thought it was a run-of-the-mill NDE. I thought it actually conveyed a really interesting message. But now, when I look back on it with everything I've learned in the last few months, it's a pretty twisted experience. And I'm going to explain exactly why after we listen to it. But I think you will agree that it sounds pretty messed up, in light of everything else that I've uncovered. So here we go.
There was no fear. The perspective that we had from there was really that a human lifetime is not very long, and that sometimes difficult situations can serve valuable ends.
And like that in and of itself, I agree with. I think we've all found that through struggle, through adversity, we come out better, especially within this life, and we can achieve amazing results. I'm not saying that I am opposed to that idea fundamentally, but you're going to see where this goes, because that is a true thing, that out of adversity you can achieve greatness out through adversity. You can come out sharper, stronger, with more character, and therefore you can do great things. But you can also take that perspective and manipulate it and say, well, okay, well, if adversity breeds strength, then okay, cool. So we're just going to make your lives even harder and even more terrible. And I'll make my, it'll impact mine, and we'll be at the top, like enjoying ourselves. But we're going to give you look how much you benefited from that last bit of adversity. We're going to give you 10 times more adversity, right? Like you could see that being a tool for manipulation. And by the way, adversity often makes us stronger, probably it's not exactly the adversity, it's our own mental state, because of obviously adversity can also break people, but it's when your own mental state triumphs over the adversity, that's when you see these leaps in growth. So it's not only the adversity, it really comes back to the person and the attitude.
If you go to a movie believing that all those actors are really killed in the movie, you're going to have a very, very different experience than if you know that this is a movie, and while it's going, you immerse yourself in it. And when it's over, you stand up and walk out, and all of those actors also stood up and walked away. Everyone's fine. No one is really hurt. And when that understanding, when that perspective is front and center, then the choice of injuries, it's not a dire choice.
Okay. So when I first heard this too, obviously I was fully invested into the NDEs being just direct connections to God or source or whatnot, and it made sense at the time, right? Like, yes, all the terrible things that we experience on Earth, if we really think about it as just being a temporary thing and really as a growth mechanism, then what's so bad about it? It's all ephemeral, it's all temporary. And that really made a lot of sense to me. But then now when I think about that analogy, it's like, okay, well, you think about it, it's all just an act and we're all fine. Like our isbies, our souls, our essence are all untouched after the fact. Well, that's fair, but we are still going through these traumatic experiences, and those negatively impact us, I imagine, and imprint on us to some extent. You know, even if you could think of a simple analogy of, I had to have my dog see the vet earlier this week, and yes, I know that he's going to be all right after that fact. And he inevitably is after that fact, but he still goes through this traumatic experience. And I feel horrible about it. It's not that I'm saying, well, I'm not even thinking about it, so it's no big deal because I know ultimately he's going to be fine. So what's the big deal? No, it's like I still feel that pain that when I'm watching him shake and freak out and panic from the experience. I don't think days after, okay, it's totally in the past, like no big deal. I mean, obviously he's fine, but that still sits with me. Like, it's not something that just because I know it's going to end and he's going to be totally fine, that we can excuse the negativity that people have to experience. Again, if there truly is a higher purpose, I understand that, but I don't think that you can just brush under the rug any sort of negative experiences that people have to endure just because they eventually come to an end, or eventually our eternal soul is going to be more, it's still will continue to exist. So I don't know, this logic doesn't sound so convincing to me anymore that, oh yes, whatever's happening is all above board simply because ultimately our essences will live on and be immortal. I'm not so sure about that anymore.
We were laughing a lot. We would do the equivalent of waving a hand and put shrapnel into my brain and then fall down laughing, seeing a kind of instant holographic totality of the rest of my life and the struggles that would present for me. Or we would wave a hand and sever my right arm and fall down laughing, watching this instant totality of the rest of my life, trying to negotiate the world with only one arm. And obviously, these things are not funny now, but from that perspective, they were very, very amusing. Eventually, we decided on the injuries. I set those injuries. And then I blinked again back to that large gathering.
Okay, pause here. So listen to that, right? They're talking about severing a hand, shrapnel in the brain. And when they're imagining it, they're laughing about it. They find it hilarious. Now, at the time, again, when I watched it, I thought, okay, maybe they're finding it funny because maybe it's all in good fun and you're just going to learn so much. And yes, it might be traumatic in the real world, but man, you're going to come out so amazing. And that's, but why is it funny? Like that, I still don't understand. Even if you're thinking about having somebody go through something traumatic or that's causes great turmoil, but ultimately, it's for their betterment. I don't see that as being a comical thing, especially when we're talking about shrapnel in the brain or severing an arm. Then the second thing I wonder is they're discussing all of these options, and ultimately she agrees on taking a certain amounts of damage. But isn't the whole premise for the recommendation of these different injuries as a growth or learning experience? So wouldn't the council say, hey, ultimately, shrapnel in the brain. This is the way you got to go because you're going to gain the maximum lesson, right? And then I imagine if you're on board with everything, you would say, yes, okay, let's do it because this is what I need. But then why would you say no, or okay, no, I'm not going to agree to that, even though that's better for me, but you're buying into that. You're going to agree to something, some lesser injury. Okay, sure. What, like, instead of saying that instead of buying into this idea that that's truly all for your benefit, it seems to me, again, in line with this theory of manipulation, that these NDEs are manipulations. They're trying to get you to agree to the greatest amount of tragedy or turmoil or whatever, so you can take that back and have the greatest struggles for the ulterior motive, not maybe objectively for your growth, but instead to produce negative energy, be a part of the system, be a part of the loosh machine, right? Like, so the more, when I was thinking back on this NDE in particular, it really started to disturb me and maybe stand out as a perfect exemplification of what David Icke and a lot of these other folks are talking about, that indeed these life reviews or these counsels are meant to manipulate, or meant to convince you that it's all for your benefit and everything is above board and all these challenges are great. But ultimately, it's a way of reframing the suffering that you're agreeing to, so that you agree to more and you have more suffering and thereby send off more energy, right? Like, and please, guys, jump in the comments, right? There was once upon a time, not very long ago, where I was like, this all makes like reasonable sense. I might go back to thinking it makes sense. I still don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but definitely at this current moment, it doesn't seem to make as much sense to me anymore. It actually seems quite perverse. All right, let's finish off this clip.
Thousands in order to discuss in more detail what I had agreed to do. And I
Okay, well, that's the end of the clip that I had there. So anyway, she goes back to that council, she agrees to it, and then she returns back to her body. And then she says whatever she agreed upon as her purpose or objective for the rest of her life, she doesn't discuss with people. She keeps that to herself. She gives a reason why, saying, hey, like, we've all got our purposes and it doesn't matter. It's only important to me. So whatever that is, I don't know why she has chosen not to share it, but maybe that was part of the agreement. But anyways, the point is, man, I think, like, thinking back on this NDE in particular, this might be a prime example of these NDEs not being what they really seem to be or cracked up to be, as, hey, what's up? You're on the right track. We're good. This is what you've done so far. This is still what you have to do, but you're all good. And we want you to keep going, but you have to agree to keep going. And this is, you know what I mean? Just kind of nudging us along, giving us a pat on the back and some reassurance and saying, hey, get back in there. You're doing great. But instead, some extra avenue to get people to agree to more difficult circumstances, or maybe come back and convey this message like they're conveying. God, it's so crazy. I never even thought that the manipulation stuff could potentially exist at this level. You know, it's just, does it not? I don't know, man. Stuff is wild and scary, but we got to keep digging and we got to keep thinking. So anyways, that's what I want to share today. Very interesting review of one of these old videos that I felt very differently about when I first reviewed this NDE and when I first made this video. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I don't know if you guys have seen this NDE or this portion or it in its entirety. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions as well on this little clip. This idea of shrapnel in the brain being this hilarious concept. Is this perverse, or is this indeed funny? And is this actually, in the grand scheme of things, does it make sense? Let me know your thoughts. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.